All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. High-powering government officials have to reform the government process so that corruption and political inequality do not occur. Animal Farm by George Orwell was written February 1944. One of Orwell's goals in writing Animal Farm was to portray the Russian Revolution of 1917 as one that resulted in a government more oppressive, totalitarian, and deadly than the one it overthrew. Many of the characters and events of Orwell's novel parallel those of the Russian Revolution. One night, all the animals in Mr. Jones' farm have a meeting in a barn to hear old Major, a pig, describe a dream he had about a world where animals live free from tyranny of their human counterparts. Shortly after the meeting, Mr. Jones forgets to feed the animals, and this sparks the revolution where Jones and his counterparts get chased off the farm. Initially, the rebellion is a success, but later on, the pigs and Napoleon's lust for power increases to the point where Napoleon becomes a totalitarian dictator. Years pass, and pigs begin walking on their hind legs and take on many other qualities of their human oppressors. The story ends with Pilkington, a neighboring farmer, sharing drinks with the pigs in Jones' house.
Throughout history, animals have worked for man.
I keep alive!
And man has fed and cared for them.
What about the animals? I'll let them rot.
Where's our food?
I'm so hungry.
But now, in this valley, on this farm, in this barn,
Man is our enemy.
things are about to change.
Remove man, and we will become free and equal.
Free and equal.
Based on one of the most important and controversial books of our time.
What's going on in there?
Revolution! Seize the day!
Quick, Eric! Let's get to the car!
Glorious victory is ours! We must never come to resemble man in any way.
They started with a dream of prosperity.
Our farm is now truly Animal Farm.
Now, they will have to face their greatest challenge, themselves.
From now on, a special committee of pigs will decide all aspects of the farm.
No.
George Orwell's classic tale of greed.
Who has the milk and apples?
Us pigs have the milk and apples.
Corruption.
Napoleon, I want to see my puppies.
You can't see your puppies.
Got a bottle of whiskey for you.
They're behaving like men.
Can't tell the difference between.
And oppression.
Any animal seen giving food to a hen will be punished by death. All animals are now free.
Animal Farm.
What if the pigs are wrong?
George Orwell makes the argument that nothing changes and history is just a cyclic repetition of events. Due to the corruption and political inequality in the novel, Napoleon forces confessions from the innocent animals and had the dogs kill them in front of the entire farm. George Orwell chooses to bring up the idea of political inequality in the novel Animal Farm because it provides an example of the implications that come with the issue, and also as a cautionary fable in order to expose the seriousness of the dangers posed by Stalinism and a totalitarian government. The main takeaway for the audience when reading Animal Farm is that when something is done with best intentions, all directed towards the greater social good, it can devolve into something just as bad or worse than it was before. On the other hand, modern society is facing a related crisis of their own. Political inequality is alive and well in the United States of America and the effects it has on society. Radhika and James Weintz of Open Global Rights both agree with the notion that political inequality promotes the inequalities of income, wealth, and power in the United States of America. Radhika and Heinz also state that when political power of the elites expands, the income and wealth distribution becomes more polarized. The disconnect from politicians to the masses may be a sign of corrupting influence of inequality on democracy. While the majority of society is trying to push political inequality into the past, corrupt politicians and government officials are maintaining it and keeping it for the future. The Economist states that squeezing the top percent ought to be the most natural thing in the world for politicians seeking to please the masses. There may be a solution to all this madness. A possible solution to political inequality would be that companies are obligated to profit share among all long-term employees. Blasey and Conway of the Daily Beast both stated that profit shares present an approach that can advance broad-based property ownership, encourage greater entrepreneurial activity in the workplace, and spread access to wealth. If the government legislatively forced profit sharing among companies, it would decrease the wage gap and promote political inequality, allowing minorities to have a fair participation in government elections. Once again, Blasey and Conway, but instead with an agenda, stated that companies with employee share ownership together with high engagement strategies tend to provide jobs with better pay and benefits than jobs at industry peers without shared ownership. Jobs with better pay and benefits can lower the income inequality and as a result lower the political inequality because the wealth is more evenly dispersed, therefore evening the playing field in elections. On the contrary, some may believe political inequality is a thing of the past. Those who believe that political inequality is a thing of the past may state that the most recent presidential election candidates were more diverse by race, gender, and class than candidates in the past. Though this may be true, Priester of Inequality.org states that 6 of the remaining 10 major contenders, presidential candidates, have fortunes worth at least $20 million. Trump, with his $4.5 billion stash, sits off the charts. The wage gap between presidential candidates and average Americans could hardly be more stark, and is telling of the corrupt political scene in America. The claim that political inequality is still relevant in today's society is more valid because even though there is an increased amount of minorities as candidates in the latest presidential election, they are in the small, and the majority of minorities struggle with a sufficient amount of income. As a result, political inequality and corruption are two major problems in today's society that cannot go unnoticed. Political inequality is still relevant today, and most of modern society agrees to try and push that into the past. George Orwell claims that nothing changes and history is just a cyclic repetition of events. Therefore, high-powered government officials have to reform the government process to try and prevent these events from reoccurring again. Government officials must legislatively fix the issues such as increasing education and social service spending, along with mandatory profit sharing for companies. Political inequality is a dying practice, and the government must step in immediately.